You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
Hello, music lovers, and welcome back to Modern Musicology. My name is Alan, and with me today is Stephanie Seymour.
Hello, everyone.
And Rob Levy.
Sup?
And guess what? If you've been watching the calendar, if you've been counting down the episodes, if you were a listener from the very first episode, you know that this week is our second anniversary. This episode is going out on the day of our second anniversary, so it has been 2 full years that we've been doing this show, and it's been an absolute joy working with Stephanie and Rob and Anthony. So thank you all for listening for the past couple of years. We are celebrating our second anniversary by having one of our very favorite guests that we had on our first year back for a second interview, and that is the fabulous Mr. Gary Clark. Gary, how are you today?
I'm excellent. Happy anniversary.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thanks.
So if anybody did not hear our first go round with Mr. Clark, I will say that Gary is a Scottish musician, songwriter, record producer. He is most known from a band called Danny Wilson. He has written and produced records with every artist under the sun that you can imagine. We interviewed him last year when the film that he scored, Sing Street, came out, and it was a fantastic film that we love so much. And this year, we are celebrating the release of the newest film, FLORA and Son, which is a musical comedy drama written and directed by John Carney and featuring original songs by Carney and Gary Clark. It stars Eve Hewson, Jack Rayner, Orén, Kinlan, and Joseph Gordon-Levitt. So we are very excited to get the lowdown on this film, which has been up for awards, and the soundtrack specifically and songs from the soundtrack has just been burning up all over the place with award nominations and awards won. And I can't wait to get into finding out the behind the scenes on this film, on the soundtrack, on the writing of the music. We're going to get into it all. So, Mr. Clark, thank you so much for joining us.
It's my pleasure. I love your show. It's always good chatting to you guys.
Aw,
Bless you.
I really want to just start by saying congratulations on you. You won the Hollywood Music and Media Awards for High Life for Best On-Screen Performance in a Film. So
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, that was a surprise. I didn't think we were going to get it. We were up against like Barbie and stuff. I was like, what?
Barbie.
Right.
Yeah. How do you beat Barbie? But
And Barbie, the Hollywood juggernaut.
Were there any crazy award ceremony stories, or was it all very common?
it was actually very subdued.
Really?
There was no alcohol on the table. There was nobody smashed anything up. It was very polite. And,
The fuck is wrong with these people? Come on.
and I feel a bit, I don't know if I should tell the story, but I've started.
Tell it.
So I'll finish. So the presenter, there was a bit of a mix-up with the envelopes, and I won't say who it was, but he announced our win in the category before.
Oh,
So
no.
we're at the table going, what happens? Do we get up? And the person who'd won it is actually a songwriter that I know called Jamie Hartman, brilliant English songwriter. And Jamie, somebody must have crept up to him and sort of said, you're on, you know. So he got up, and it was all really confusing. And then they announced our category, and we knew that we'd won it. So it was, it was
No surprise.
like, we had to sort of like, well, hey. You know.
That's so disappointing for the other people in the category who know before the category gets read that they did
No,
not
I
win the
know,
award.
and you've got to sort of, oh, never mind.
Yeah, that's rough. But hey, you won, so whatever. I think Rob and I had a sort of a similar question for you. And Rob, that was to your point of, how is it to write songs for so many different genres for one film? I mean, because you have like rap, rock, dance, electronica, a singer-songwriter. Is that a challenge, or how did that work?
It's actually, I suppose I'm kind of fortunate in the work that I did as a songwriter producer kind of took me all over the map, really. And my band was quite eclectic anyway, but the writing production thing was, I literally did do rock artists and rap artists and all kinds of things, acoustic stuff. And then I got kind of like baptism by fire on John. If you think about Sing Street, it was all kind of one band. And so it had even though they go through different sort of phases, it was all recorded with a live band in a studio. We knew what the sound was roughly. And it's all set in the same era. Whereas in FLORA, you've got so many different influences, as you say. The only thing I'd say is that the series that I did with John Carney called Modern Love, there was 2 seasons of that. And there was different directors on every single episode, all with different musical tastes and stuff. So that was really the baptism by fire of just like, you've just got to kind of make it work. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, I guess that was the kind of the question, because you had to work with all of these different musicians and sort of wrangling them in, which I'm assuming is easy for you because you're a musician first, so you can kind of speak the language across the genres. But I wanted to kind of ask you, kind of a pivoting off that, not only you're working with all these different musicians in your career, you have actors that you have to get to sing. And I'm just wondering what that process was like for you, sort of having to work with actors. Many of them probably do have some musical chops, but still sort of getting them in their comfort zone and sort of like, working in a different way.
Well, actors are used to being chucked in the deep end. That's the one thing. I mean, even though they were, Joe Gordon-Levitt is actually a real musician. I think he was. I was
thinking he must have been. Yeah, he's so good.
I mean, I did a Zoom with him just to kind of explore how good he was on the guitar, so that I could figure out what he could do on screen and stuff. And he was just instantly like, I'm like, okay, we're not going to have to worry about you. He's totally fine. Eve was nervous. Eve Hewson was nervous. She doesn't think of herself as a singer or musician at all. She did have a few chords on guitar. We got her a guitar teacher and a singing teacher. But to be honest with you, I mean, on the first Zoom she did with John Carney, she said, I'm not, because, I don't know if you know this, but her dad is Bono from
Yes.
Yeah.
So
my hero, for real.
I love Bono too. But he said, she said, I'm not my dad. That's the first thing that she said. I'm not like a belter singer. And John said, that's fine. That's not what we're looking for. We want it to be honest and true. And then she did a little demo. I think it was a Taylor Swift song or something. That was the first time I heard her voice. And then I did some Zooms with her and I was like, this is going to be fine. She's totally fine.
Wow.
And actually, we didn't do a lot of tuning or anything like that because the whole point of this was that it felt really real.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the stuff was, particularly the guitar lessons in the film, they're all completely live.
Mm-hmm.
No, there's no trickery involved,
It's funny that your first meeting with all of these people was over Zoom, since that's the premise of the movie.
Done over Zoom, actually, it's mad. Because I was in Scotland for a lot of it when they were shooting in Ireland, and I would go in at the weekends to record them because they were shooting during the week, So I would go in and grab vocals where I could. But a lot of the work was going on here. And in terms of, like you mentioned, sort of working with lots of different musicians, on FLORA, we had a really low budget. I'm pretty much playing everything, with John Carney playing some stuff, and Joseph Gordon-Levitt's playing the live stuff. We didn't even have a budget for strings or anything on this. This was pretty low budget. And then Apple bought it. So
right.
If we'd done that in reverse, then we could have we could have ruined it with a big orchestra.
I mean, I think it kind of fits, though, that it's not, because the whole point of it, I mean, it's not a spoiler. I don't think that Max and FLORA and their band they're not going to be winning a Grammy or anything. It's like they're kind of low budget, and the same thing with Joseph Gordon-Levitt, his character, like they're all kind of, it's quiet and low budget. I mean, even that pub scene at the end is just a fun kind of raucous thing.
Yeah. I mean,
so
the John wouldn't let it ever. It's not his aesthetic for it. You don't want to leave the cinema thinking, oh, she's going to be a rock star. It's not what it's about, really. It's that One of the producers put this really well, actually, and I'm just going to steal it because it's so right on. But the scene where she chats to the guy outside the pub about the talent night, you can actually see the flats in the background down the street if you look at that scene. And so in physical terms, she only comes in the whole movie, she only moves a few hundred yards. It's really about her emotional journey and her relationship with her son, really, more than anything else, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I think the kid's name is Orén Kinlan, right? Who played Max?
Mm-hmm.
Had he any experience with rap? Because he was really good. I thought he did well.
He was absolutely terrified. He'd never done anything, but he's such a lovely kid, and he just worked like so hard. And then by the time, because we did the 007 song rap in the studio, and actually, when I think about it, that's live as well. He did that live on camera.
Wow.
Oh no, I'm getting them mixed up. The other way around. The playback one is High Life at the end. So he'd had some. I know I'm getting no. He didn't. The first thing he had to do was 007.
Okay.
And I wasn't even there. John was there. So
wow.
Right in the deep end. And he got away with it.
And did you write those lyrics for him, or did he actually come up with some of those raps and stuff?
No, we wrote them.
Mm-hmm.
And that leads me into a question that I'm really curious to know about, because some of the actors do have songwriting credits on some of these songs as far as like the lyrics. So I want to know how much they had input into the lyrics that they were singing.
Quite a lot. The sort of pivotal songs for Eve and for Joseph, which is Flora and Jeff. The pivotal songs were the Rooftop song, which was called Rooftop Song forever, and it became Meet in the Middle.
What a good song.
Well, we sort of had the musical bones of that, and I'd written some kind of sketch lyric. Didn't have a chorus. We knew that what the chords were going to be, because it actually says it in the script. It says that you don't change chords.
Right.
Okay, well, we'll know what the chords are going to be. And then Eve basically said to John that Flora wouldn't say that, or Flora would say this, and da-da-da. She'd started shooting by then. Joe hadn't. And John's solution was just to get in the studio and just hash it out, rather than pinging stuff backwards and forwards all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And that song was kind of the beginning of it, and I think the first day in the studio was the first day that she'd met Joe. He'd just arrived, because she'd been shooting some stuff on her own beforehand. And the next minute, we're all just sitting with acoustic guitars trying to finish this song. But the kind of idea of it, when people see the film, is that it's very conversational. So the idea that we could just sit together and actually do it like that in chronological order, sort of work our way through it, and sort of they could act it and sing it in the space, worked really, really well. And then we actually had it by maybe 4 in the afternoon or something, and then cut the vocals, and that was it. That's what you hear on the thing.
Wow.
The only bit that was weird was John at one point joked, the chorus needs to be something like, maybe we could meet in the middle. And we were all joking about, well, that's the middle of the ocean and you would drown and stuff. And I just started singing, maybe we can meet in the middle, as a joke. And John's like, no, that's it.
That's it.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Oh, geez. Okay. Right.
I just want to say super quick that this is like, I've been a fan of Joseph for a long time, but this is the first thing I've ever seen Eve in, and she was phenomenal.
I know.
Yeah. She's just amazing. I couldn't have hoped for anything better. John was unsure about Eve. He's known her, he knows Bono, and he's known her since she was a kid, and she'd always said, I want to be an actress and stuff. And he'd seen her in a few things where she was very straight and sort of buttoned up, and I think it was some Edwardian thing or something. And he just didn't think she was right, but out of courtesy, because he knows her dad and stuff, that he would take a Zoom call, and when he got off the Zoom call, he was like, "That's Flora," you know.
Yeah, she was super sassy, super sarcastic. Like it was just like line after line, zoom, zoom, zoom. You know, like bing, bing, bing. She was great.
Slightly softer than that in real life, but actually is kind of Flora as well. You know, so it's.
Yeah, her performance seemed very natural. Like almost, that's kind of what I figured she would be like.
Yeah,
so
just funny.
I wanted to ask you, and this might be more of a question for your partner as well in this mess, but a lot of the film stuff you guys have worked on, the musicians tend to come from this sort of like almost working class amateur background, and they're not like trained musicians, or they're not like guys that have been in bands forever. You know, it's different than the Commitments. I'm not talking about that, but is that an aesthetic that you guys are bringing to it personally, or is that just the way that the stories have unfolded? Because I think that's part of the charm of it, is these guys are sort of like working class blue collar people that want to make music.
Even before I worked with John, because I've done John's last 2 pictures, but the 2 pictures before that still have that same aesthetic, really. You know, like once, even though you're talking about a really talented busker, it's a busker. And then Begin Again has a similar, actually one of them's a bit of a rock star and the others are amateur. So I think it's John's aesthetic. I don't think he ever wants to try and do like a big sort of Hollywood take on the music business. In fact, I think he fears that. And again, I'll go back to, I think it's not so much about the music as it is about how the people are changed by making the music or what the music means to them. And I know that just from working with him, that he often is kind of reining me in and pulling me back, because my instinct, having worked as a writer producer for a long time, is that you know, try and make the biggest, bestest pop song you can make, and that's not what it's about. So the big learning curve for me is actually learning that it's not about it being the best anything, it's about it being right for the film or right for the characters.
That's what I was totally going to ask you. I mean, how hard is it to sort of reel yourself in to make a song that's good, but maybe that's not going to be?
Yeah, no, it's a challenge, and the more challenging ones are even when it's supposed to be. Like there's one in Flora and Son where you see the journey of the song being written. That's the rooftop song that becomes Meet in the Middle. You hear Joe's version of it that she kind of fixes and stuff. So instead of doing that in chronological order, we wrote the actual song first and then sort of do deconstructed versions of it.
Yeah, that makes sense, I think.
I deliberately sort of like, you know, like put bits of melody one too many times so it just gets boring, because in the script her eyes glaze over when he's doing this song. And so I'm thinking, well, how do you make her eyes glaze over? And so it was like just one too many lines that you would never do if you were writing a song. And I played it to Joe Gordon-Levitt. He says, you know, it should really just be 2 of those lines, you know. And I said, I know, but we're trying to make it boring. And he's going, I know, but I've got to sing it.
The thing that I have loved the most about these 2 films, about Sing Street and about Flora and Son, is exactly what you're talking about. It's that personal journey of a discovery of music and how music becomes so personal to these lead characters and the impact that it has on their lives. And that's the thing that I think is the most important aspect of these films. Is it's the whole, like, you know, cliched power of music, but it's how that power like relates to a particular life and how it changes a particular life. And I think that is such a beautiful journey to watch.
I absolutely. And that is John, you know, for sure. And a lot of his movies, they have a kind of hidden autobiographical element to them, even if they're not completely autobiographical. Like, for instance, Flora is very much a tribute to his mum. Sing Street is very much a tribute to his brother. You know, there's always a kind of thread of reality in John's thing. And I think he does believe very much in the power of music to unite people and change people, and talks about, you know, he'll talk about when his mom bought him a bass guitar when he was 14, you know.
Mm-hmm.
and the massive impact it had on him. So there's a real honesty at the heart of it, I think. And I think that's what touches people, you know.
You and I were talking a while ago about, I mentioned the song Talking to You, which to me, I think that's like my favorite tune on the soundtrack. It plays over the credits. You had mentioned to me that actually had originally a whole scene devoted to itself.
Yeah.
And that in an edit, I guess it was felt that maybe it slowed the act down. So it was decided to play over the credits. I want to know, I mean, is that difficult as a writer to sort of have your song, the intention for your song changed? It must be hard to not take it personally, or is it just not?
It's hard. I mean, the thing about that song was when I sent it to John, he almost changed the name of the film to Talking to You. He loved that song so much.
Wow.
And he saw it as pivotal to the movie. But why it didn't work was, and it was in and it was out and it was in and it was out.
Oh.
So I went through all the various emotions of it because I love that song as well. And it's one that I did on my own. So it's kind of very personal to me. But I absolutely get why it didn't work. And that is that when you put that song into the last act, it made the whole thing about Flora and Jeff, and it took away from Flora and Max.
Yeah.
That was the reason it went on the end. And ultimately, it was the right decision. So you kind of just got to look at the bigger picture, really. Even when I'm not saying it doesn't affect you. You go, oh, really?
Yeah.
But it's bigger than the song. It's the whole,
right. It's the movie. Yeah. Okay. It makes sense, actually, now that you explain it about, and of course, the core relationship that really is the movie is Flora and Max. So.
Yeah, and obviously I got to see it in there. I saw cuts with it in, and it was kind of happening just before the pub scene. Because if you remember, he says to her in the park just after the kid's gone through the whole thing of he's getting sent to correctional facility and stuff, and she's talking to him on the laptop in the park, and he says, "I've written a song for you." So that the obvious place, it has to happen after that, and the only thing that really happens after that is it goes to the song at the pub song at the end, highlight.
Right.
So it really made you think, are they going to get together? It really put a lot of emphasis on Jeff and Flora, and then kind of weakened the whole thing with the mum and son. And I think that's really what the film's about,
Yeah, definitely.
Sort of just talk about how you met John. I know we've had you on a couple times, but we never actually talked about you guys and how you started collaborating and how you got together to make music.
It was Sing Street was set in the 80s and was really based on John's story of forming his own school band and his brother turning him on to records and bands and stuff. And one of the records that his real brother in real life had actually played him was my band's first album.
Wow.
And so he was calling people that his brother had played him their music and stuff, and asking them to do a song. I don't know who else he called and how much he got back or whatever, but when I sent him a song, he really loved it and phoned me back like the next day and just said, "Do you want to come on for the whole movie?"
Whoa.
I was like, absolutely, yeah. And that's really where it started there. And also in that film, I started really as a sort of songwriter, but as we started to work on it, I guess he saw me working with Ferdy, the actor, and then I did a string arrangement, and it sort of grew organically through that. So
yeah,
a handle on that I wasn't just a songwriter, that I had my production stuff and things, which is then when he asked me to do Modern Love, and we've kind of worked together ever since that. Not that I take that for granted, because I don't.
Was that a big career shift for you? Sort of, I know you'd written songs and stuff for other people and done your own stuff, but then suddenly having to sort of transition to films and then eventually the stage. Was that a hard transition to make, or was it just sort of like it's all kind of the same? You're just doing it in different ways.
I almost felt like it was meant to happen. it was something that I always loved. Didn't know how the heck you get into it. I mean, but film and music has always, I mean, the music amplifies the film and the film amplifies the music. And even loads of my song titles have got bits stolen from films, and always been kind of obsessed with it and buy as many soundtrack records and scores and stuff as I do rock records or whatever. But I didn't know how to get into it. So when I got the call, I mean, it was just, I mean, I had done one song before for a Ewan McGregor film called Night Watch. That's ages ago.
Oh my God, yeah.
We got commissioned to do one song. That was when I was in a band called Transistor. And then I've had a lot of songs placed in films, but they're songs that already existed or were out in the world, you know.
Yeah.
It's completely different, somebody asking you to contribute something to the film, and then when he asked me to do the whole film, and then it sort of grew into score and all that stuff, it was amazing, and it still is amazing, and I absolutely love the combination of film and music. So it's just a joy. It's still got to pinch myself, because the thing about film is it takes so many people and moving parts and so much money and all these things to make this thing, you know.
Yes.
Whereas a record, particularly because I've always had home studios and stuff, like I can make a record very, very quickly and very, very cheaply, you know. The film, you're no longer, I don't know what the word is really, you're sort of subservient to the whole thing. It's kind of what we were talking about a minute ago, really. But you have to sort of be able to go, yes, even when you think that's a mad idea. And you basically have to, there's so many other problems going on that if you were causing problems or creating problems, you wouldn't last very long. So it's about solving problems and drawing on everything that you've sort of been through to kind of get it right for the director, really, first and foremost.
On that same kind of note, there you were saying that, I mean, I was telling you how I saw the film. It sort of reverberated with me for a few days, and I kept kind of picking up different meanings, and it just meant like I was sort of interpreting it in what it meant to my own life. And you said that when you're in the middle of it, like when you're in the thick of making this, and you don't have the feedback, you know, right away, you don't know if your ideas are good or not. I mean, but now that so many people obviously have reacted positively to the film, you feel some validation, but it must be a little bit hard, right? When you're in that bubble almost, to know what's real and what's not, or, you know.
It's impossible. And actually some things, like for instance, High Life almost hit the cutting room floor at the last minute. Like there was a few producers weren't sure about it. And then others who thought it was really amazing. And John loved it. I loved it. So, you know, there was a bit of a tussle to whether that was going to, but there was really talk about writing a whole new song, really quite late in the proceedings. And that's been getting an amazing reaction. So you just, you literally don't know. And I guess other people don't know either. So, you know, you just try and do something that you love and hope people are going to love it. But the other thing that's amazing is because the songs sit in a story, you've got the story to help them get into people's consciousness as well, you know, or get into people's hearts or whatever, however you want it. It's not just an isolated thing. If you heard that song on its own, it might not do the same thing to you as it does when, you know, you've had this journey to get there on the screen.
Right. Like an emotional thing from actors, and, you know, it's like all mixed into one, and it furthers the story.
Yeah. And hopefully the songs further the story, and the story does the same thing for the songs, you know.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about the actors' journey in this movie? And, you know, we've talked about the characters and how they react to the music and how they evolve over the course. But can you talk about the actors? When they first come in, it's an acting job. When they leave this film, how did this experience change them? And can you see a way that they started to become more active in it or to be more passionate about it as the project went on?
Well, it's funny because I think Eve's the one who's probably the most changed by it, in the sense that she's been playing guitar and stuff every day and continued singing and doing singing lessons. And,
Oh, good.
you know,
Oh,
she
that's fantastic.
really did not think of herself as a musician or a singer at all, you know. Whereas, you know, Joe is still making music. Joe was saying that his kid makes music. I just saw him last week, actually, and he was saying that his 8-year-old kid makes music. So he spends a lot of time recording his kid and writing songs with them and stuff.
Oh, that's really sweet.
But he already had music very much in his life, whereas Eve probably actually going against the family business. You know?
Right.
Yeah.
And I was kind of wondering about that. If she didn't see herself as a musician or a songwriter or whatever, is that simply reaction to people's expectations of what she would turn out to be? You know, is she not rebelling, you know, but finding her own path?
Definitely.
Yeah.
And actually, you know, now that because I hadn't seen Bad Sisters and stuff. I don't know if you've seen Bad Sisters, but it's really great. That's Sharon Horgan's the director or writer of this series that Eve's in, and she has quite a big part in it. And I hadn't seen that when we did the film, and I went back and watched it, and you know, you can see in that just how good she is as well. So she's clearly just got the talent gene, and I don't know if she's deliberately went against, because you know her brother's in a band. I'm going to forget the name.
Yeah,
but
absolutely,
a really good band.
Oh, that's right. I do remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're actually really blowing up at the moment. Actually, they're doing. I've just got a blank on the name, but they're playing big theaters and stuff now.
Yeah, they had a big buzz. I remember that. Yeah, that's cool. Family business.
Yeah, exactly. I should be a plumber then.
No, please stick to songwriting, Gary. We love it.
Really. Let me plumb your bathroom.
Right. Plumbing can be a nice backup in case this music lark ever just falls through.
Yeah.
You'd be like drowning.
You know, the people out there, if you haven't seen the movie yet, please do. It's streaming on Apple. Listen to the soundtrack as well, because it's great. But either way, you will Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
You will Joseph Gordon-Levitt. That is adorable.
I wonder if he's heard that before.
Oh, I'm sure.
Rob.
and certainly when we come up to award season and you start seeing this thing on Grammys and on Oscar nominations and things like that, you will already know the film and already know the soundtrack. So get on it now.
Yeah, get on it.
So is there another possible film coming from you and John later down the road?
Yeah, John's kind of sent me a couple of different ideas, and then he has a kind of abstract idea that he really wants to do something set in the disco era.
Oh, yes.
But he hasn't found the story yet. And it's interesting because I actually know some people who were in disco bands who live around here, who actually made it onto Top of the Pops and stuff in the 70s. And I've sort of said to John, why don't you come and just talk to them about their experiences? It might spark them, you know?
Yeah.
But he loves that music and he really wants to do something in that world. But then he's got other ideas that are more story-based, but they're musical things. As I say, I don't take for granted that I'm necessarily going to be the person that he calls to do these things. But if he does, then I'll be there for sure.
Yeah. And I know that there's another upcoming project that Stephanie wanted to ask you about.
Yeah, I mean, we've been hearing about the Nanny McPhee musical for a while with Dame Emma Thompson, and you are co-writing the lyrics for it. So, how is that going, and what's going on with that?
Well, I'm getting up at 5 a.m. tomorrow to go to London to do another workshop on that. We are really close now. We have a director, we have funding, we have producers, we have most of the songs, I would say, a good chunk of the music, quite a lot of the actors have done numerous workshops now, so we're kind of really starting to hone in on who's brilliant at what parts and stuff.
Excellent.
So I mean, the goal is to get it on stage next year. Probably London's the most likely. I mean, they may do sometimes they do something out of town just to get it up on its feet and test it out, you know. So they
Yeah, you mean like put it somewhere rather than like just West End right away?
Yeah, they might do something in some, I don't know, Glasgow or Portsmouth, something like that. They sometimes will do a few weeks just to get all the kinks out, really, when not in front of the West End audience. But the obvious goal for it is to get it on the West End. And then hopefully onwards and upwards from there.
Okay, good. So that's coming along very well.
I can't wait for people to hear it. It's been a seriously long journey through all the pandemic stuff and everything, but just theatre's really, even more than film, I'd say there's so many voices in the room that you have to be really flexible. Even though right from the beginning, I've had a really strong idea about what this music should sound like. But there are so many, what I consider to be some of the best songs have hit the cutting room floor for the same reason we were talking about the films, you know. It's right. They changed the script. You can't go like, don't change the script because I love that song. I mean, you want to.
I'm also a script writer, and I say no.
So there's been so many, you know, just ups and downs to get it to where we're at now. And I think we're so close now, it's ridiculous.
Wow, that's good, because last time you were on, you were talking about this, you know, and it was just like a long process even then. So
yeah. It continues to be so.
Yeah.
One of the big challenges that's really it'll be interesting to see where this lands. But we had 2 big opening numbers, and everybody, all the musical theatre people have been saying to me, you can't have 2 big opening numbers. I'm like, what do you mean? and this is actually, for years, they've been cutting one and then using the other one. They've been blending them together. They've been cutting the other one, and then, you know, and it's mental. And then I just reworked what was originally the second of the 2 songs. When I say reworked, it's actually closer back to the original from 5 years ago. But I got an email yesterday saying that the director has an idea to use both the songs again. And that's
there you go.
So we'll find out about that in the next couple of days.
Very nice.
But I don't know. I mean, that's what happens. I get excited and then they cut it again. They'll probably cut both of them.
We did another big opening number. Back to the drawing board.
Yeah.
Last time you were on, we asked you a few questions about some of the artists that you had worked with as a songwriter or producer. And I remember specifically asking you about Julia Fordham, whom I'm a big fan of. I'm curious. I don't think I asked you last time about the song Cold by the Veronicas. Can you talk a little bit about that collaboration and how that came about?
The Veronicas. How did I meet the Veronicas again? Because I did a lot of stuff with them, actually. And they went through a period. They were spending a lot of time in LA when I was in LA, and we really loved working together. I think we did about, 9 or 10 songs, maybe even more. But they kept, basically their A&R kept changing. Like they had something, period that I was working with them, which was maybe about 3 years. The A&R changed 4 times, I think.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Wow. That's amazing. It didn't even get dropped, you know?
Songs, yeah, and it didn't get dropped.
Wow.
But then they ended up going back to Australia, and Cold was really one of the only songs that, something else with them, I can't remember. But Jessica was dating Billy Corgan.
Oh, nice.
And he ended up playing guitar on it, and it's exactly my guitar part. So I was like, wow, Billy Corgan played my guitar part. He does it well, though, to be fair.
Oh, I'm sure.
But yeah, that was one of those ones where that was a kind of I didn't know if any of it was ever going to come out. But there was some great songs, so they may come out in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Never know. Yeah, I loved working with them. They're so talented. And both of them, and I found this in general with Australian artists for some reason. I think there's a very strong live scene in Australia. So you have to be able to cut it on the mic. And they really give 120%. You know, it's just, when they finish a song, you look at them and they look like they're just about to die because they've given absolutely everything, you know. Great singers.
Do you ever miss life in a band?
No, I don't. I mean, I love making records and I sort of don't get time to do that. When I say I don't, I do, but it's for other things, you know.
Right.
I don't get to do my own records because I just don't get time. So I would say I've slightly missed that. And, you know, occasionally I'll come up with an idea for a song and I'll know that, well, if I was making a record, that would be for me. It wouldn't really fit anything else. And so I've got a bag full of those starts, you know. I don't finish songs until I'm kind of ready to record them, actually, interestingly enough.
Oh my God, I'm
I'll
kind of
mull songs around for ages, but then when I'm ready to record them, I go, okay, I suppose I better finish this now.
So when you're not working on a film or working on Nanny McPhee or working on songs that might end up being something for yourself or whatever, what do you do to unwind? What is some of your music or movies or books that you enjoy recreationally?
You know what? Again, it's probably as eclectic as my music, my taste in all of that stuff. But actually, I like doing things that get me completely out of thinking, away from thinking. Like during lockdown, I got into building guitars and stuff and wiring guitars and the thing about it, well, just sitting with a soldering iron, that's the only thing you're thinking about, you know?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Everybody needs those things that you just, even if I go for a cycle or a walk or something, I'm still in my head. Whereas if I actually got to solder this little bit of wire to this thing, then, it's like meditation for whatever that half an hour or whatever it is, you're just not thinking about anything else. And that's kind of like, that's what I actually do to unwind.
Yeah. So out of curiosity, all the guitars that we see behind you in your office, how many of those are ones that you built?
Right there, right now, 4.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
One of them was a Mexican guitar that I just tweaked, but I tweaked it. The only thing that's left is the neck and the body, but the rest of it's. But the other ones are sort of they're like parts casters, I suppose. Get all the best bits of stuff and wire it all together.
You and my husband could start a business together, a guitar building and selling business. Because I'll just smell the solder coming up from the basement and I'll be like, I know what's happening.
Well, again, just in case that plumbing side business doesn't work,
Exactly.
Guitar building is where it's at.
It's great fun. And then you get a guitar at the end of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I should get into building drum sets.
Yes.
We are going to take a very short break. We'll be back in 30 seconds and we're going to wrap up our show with Mr. Clark. So don't go away.
All right, monkeying around, start talking.
Shiny Clipper calling Alameda. Shiny Clipper calling Alameda.
About your podcast.
We talk about an Emmy-winning comedy series.
We talk about a band who outsold the Beatles and the Stones in 1967.
Still sticking to that story, huh? Well, if you know what's good for you, you'll change your tune.
We talk about a groundbreaking multimedia project
that inspired generations of artists and fans.
All right, throw the book at them.
This book is overdue.
Monkeying Around, a podcast about the monkeys.
Okay, we are back. And Mr. Clark, why don't you tell us a little bit about where people can find Flora and Son and where they can follow more of you on either socials or websites?
Thank you. So I'm Gary Clark Music, one word, pretty much everywhere. So Facebook, Instagram, all that good stuff, Twitter. So it's GaryClarkmusic. And Flora and Son is now an Apple film. So it's in select theaters, but it is already streaming on Apple TV Plus. And I would suggest you go and watch it.
Yeah, we
And buy the
definitely suggest
soundtrack.
that too.
And
Buy the soundtrack.
that's on all the streaming platforms. The one thing that I'm doing at the moment, actually, the thing that I was just mixing before I came on, is we have in the movie at the end of the Meet in the Middle song, Joseph Gordon-Levitt says, "All we need now is a bridge," and they talk about what a bridge is, a middle eight bars. And John thought it would be fun to actually write that, so we've written a bridge for it, and we've just recorded. Actually, we had a better budget for that than we did for the rest of the film. It's actually got
The bridge for one song.
drums on it and real drums. And I'm just mixing that at the moment, and we're going to add that to the soundtrack album, the version with the bridge.
Oh,
Cool.
fantastic.
And, yeah.
That's really cool. Well, it has been such a pleasure chatting with you once again. And thank you so much for helping us celebrate our second anniversary by coming back on and letting us interview you a second time.
It's always my pleasure to chat to you guys.
Hey, maybe we'll have you on for our third anniversary too.
Hells yeah.
I like it.
Or after the musical drops.
Yeah.
Yeah, after Nanny McPhee hits, we'll definitely have you back on.
So the last time you were here, you had a really funny story about, Emma calling you on the phone and you didn't believe it was Emma Thompson, right? Do you have any more stories like that for us this time to sort of leave us on?
I don't know if I've told you this one, but it's pretty good. Like, my wife, Alison, likes to keep my feet on the ground. And for years and years, I've thought of myself as a songwriter. I even had it on my passport. And I thought that was really cool. And then when I went into the first workshop on Nanny McPhee, and Alison came in with me, Emma introduced me to somebody as, "This is our composer."
Oh.
I'm thinking, I'm digging that. Yeah. And Alison whispered in my ear, "Is that short for complete fucking poser?"
Oh my gosh. Oh, wow.
Oh my God, Allison for the win.
Oh man.
She likes to keep my
That
feet
is-
under the ground.
That is killer.
But it's funny. Since doing this, I've I was at the Nashville Film Festival, and there was an SCL, which is a composer's kind of, I don't know what you call it, like a thing, gathering thing, and I met a bunch of composers, and I was standing at a table with like 6 or 7 other guys who did that, and I told them that story, and nobody had ever heard it before. They were just absolutely floored. I think it's probably going to go into the vernacular of
Yeah.
Right.
She's created it. Yeah. That's so funny.
All right, Stephanie, why don't you tell us where folks can find more about you?
Okay, you can find me on Facebook at Stephanie Seymour Music. You can find me on Instagram at there_r_birds. And I also have a website, therearebirds.com. And you can find me on Bandcamp under my name, and then on Spotify and all the, streaming platforms everywhere.
All right, Rob, hit it.
So you can find me on Mondays from 6 to 8 Greenwich Mean Time, 12 to 2 Central, 1 to 3 Eastern, with Antics on Louder Than War Radio. It's internet radio based out of Manchester, England, run by the maniacally brilliant John Robb, who's insane. But that's on. You can listen to that. All the shows are archived on their Mixcloud page. There's 36 of them now, so you can listen to those. And then also I host Juxtaposition on KDHX on Wednesday nights from 7 to 9 Central. Those are also archived for 2 weeks at kdhx.org.
Sweet. And you can check out my website at cosmiccreative.com, KOZMIC creative.com. All right. That wraps it up for our second anniversary celebration, which we spent with Gary Clark.
Woo-hoo.
Gary, once again, thank you so much for joining us. We love you. We can't wait to have you on again. It has been an absolute pleasure.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right.
Great.
Everybody, take care. We will see you next week. If everything goes as planned, next week we're going to be continuing our 2nd anniversary celebration by a revisit with the amazing Gina Schock of the Go-Go's. So stick around for that. Everybody take care. Have a great week and keep rocking on.
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network. Be part of the crew and help support our shows by donating to our ESO Patreon or by shopping at the TeePublic store, which can all be found at www.esonetwork.com. The ESO Network, your station for all things geek.